Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Darren, and recently I've been playing as many classes as I could on the beta. Right now, the servers for PvP, by the way, are down. It says the servers are incompatible. I'm really hoping the Blizzard kind of fixes that by tomorrow, Sunday, so we can have something to do on stream, or at the very least by Monday would be great. But right now I can't really go back to play any of the classes to give you guys some fresh footage. So here's the footage from the live stream I was able to record when we went back to play a bunch of classes that I just didn't get the best impression of. Now, what I want to do for a video, maybe separately, is to go back and take a look at some of the other specializations that I simply didn't cover. Things like Affliction Warlock, take a closer look at Beastmaster Hunter, give Arms Warrior and Fury Warrior another go, Unholy Death Knight and Frost, any classes that I thought were okay but didn't quite impress me. And I tried out the brand new Fury, and honestly, one of the biggest things that's going to be that might make the game a little bit less alt-friendly, especially for anybody who PvPs, is the fact that gear actually matters, and so do stats. Getting better stats and getting the right stats for specialization is a make it or break it type of situation, as I did for Fury. The first time I played Fury, I talked about it with a bunch of guys on trade chat. Everybody trying to figure out, what are the best builds, and whoever's online, it's whoever's online, so it could be anybody of any experience. But somebody said something about a versatility and a crit build. Because you have crit from your recklessness, you don't have 100% crit, so whatever crit you can get plus 20% could increase your damage. And then statistically, versatility might be a better option because you're not always enraged, so maybe buffing your abilities to enrage might be better. A lot of people talked about that haste might not be the best stat because you're getting free haste anyway every time you enrage, so stacking that might not be worth. But then, that build, I tried it, I wasn't impressed, it was okay-ish, it felt like Fury was very, very rampy. Then I came back into it. I went with full haste, secondary versatility, mostly for the heal and damage outside of enrage, with enrage buffing my damage passively, a little bit of mastery, but mostly focus on as much haste as possible, and by god does Fury feel absolutely amazing. I tried both arms and I tried Fury, and I'm not going to compare a bunch of different specializations that specialize in various things, but comparing arms and Fury against one another, I feel like is as accurate as it's going to get. You have two classes that both have a charge, have baseline stun, both have a fear, and both have the same way of healing, and cooldowns are for the most part very, very similar. And you're very similar in terms of you're building up damage and trying to get that strong execute damage at the very end. And overall, I love Fury. If I had to compare both of them, Arms was a good spec, it was a great spec, it felt fine. I feel like I still need to finagle with a few stats as I end up going with a crit versus heavy stat playstyle, but it ended up feeling pretty good. It felt like the spec had a lot more steady damage. Every time you were just on somebody, you're always doing good damage. For Fury though, there's a lot more button hitting, and it felt absolutely amazing to get all your combos going back to back. I absolutely even love the playstyle of random execute ticks, which was awesome. The random execute ticks I think is what made the spec have the time, because if I can get an enrage into an execute proc that I can get with enrage, that can be a ton of damage. That also gives me my resources back very quickly. And on top of that, I also absolutely loved the AoE that Fury can put out. The whirlwind into two abilities just makes it that much better, and in PvP in particular, it's something you can easily enable at all times. While with arms, for example, you have to turn on sweeping strikes to enable any kind of cleave. Technically, the arms way of going about enabling cleave is the better way. You just pop a buff on yourself. It does spend a global, but you pop a buff, and now you're cleaving for a good chunk of time. For Fury, however, you have to keep refreshing it with Whirlwind, but the way that they designed the spec, just even pressing the ability for Whirlwind feels so good. There's definitely some kind of a feedback to you hitting this ability that just kind of wrecks everybody around you, and then your next two abilities have a cleave effect to it. Something about feeling like you're pressing a button that deals damage, even though not too much damage, even though that ability doesn't generate too much rage. Just the fact that you're pressing a button and it does something in game feels a lot better than having to pop an ability that's just a self buff that doesn't do anything at all. So I feel like you are going to have some advantages like this for Fury with arms, and disadvantages. For Fury, you have to have that whirlwind to cleave, but for arms, you don't really need anything, no buffs, no self buffs to do damage. You just hit the enemy with a Colossus Smash, which is an ability that already does stuff from the beginning. Then you're stacking up overpower, and then you get that big mortal strike in there afterwards. Overall, I enjoyed Fury, and I'm still on the lookout to watch out for any different class that I'm looking forward to. And right now, I don't really know any class that I'm excited about right now, besides the ones I already talked about. I know that I'm very much excited about rogues. I am very excited about where they're going. I'm very excited to talk a bit about hunters. And explore marksman hunter, explore survival hunter, and a little bit of beastmaster hunter here and there. Warlock is another class that I'm very interested in. Destruction and Demo are looking like very appealing specs, and even Affliction doesn't look that bad. But then from there, I'm kind of stumped. I kind of want to at least have 5 different classes that I want to play all at the same time, as I'm somebody who gets very, very tired doing same old over and over and over. So for me, having more than one class to play around with would be awesome. And right now, I think Fury, because of Fury Warrior in particular, I'm actually thinking of putting Warriors as one of the classes I'm interested in. Of course, you're always going to have your Arms Warrior, which is going to be the staple specialization. I feel like a lot of people are going to play it because of the Mortal Strike effect, the healing reduction that it provides in arenas and in battlegrounds. I feel like Arms and Prot Warriors are even going to be more seen in PvE, as they seem very, very steady spec with almost guaranteed damage. But then there's Fury Warrior, and Fury Warrior just feels absolutely amazing to play. The playstyle is so fast, and I feel like it could be the playstyle with the highest skill cap and high capability for big damage in arenas and battlegrounds. Overall, I'm very, very happy with what Blizzard has done for the specialization. Very, very like where it's going. And because of Fury alone, I'm actually thinking of playing myself some Warrior in the future. If you pay attention to the screen, I kind of want to commentate over some of the favorite part of the battleground. Like, for example, when Kedrin or Revenge from the live stream, one of my mods, was getting hampered down by a rogue. And it was kind of cool for me to just go in there and start peeling for him. But Fury Warrior might not be the specialization that you remember in Legion as, like, instantaneous burst. You are going to have a little bit of ramp up to it, but it's going to come from ability. So it's almost like, how can you combo your abilities in order to get the most amount of damage? And then here I actually get to test my AoE cleave capability, because Warrior and the Death Knight is sitting next to one another, and when one of them gets to low health, I can actually utilize my execute procs in an interesting way where I'll turn on cleave, I'll get to the guy that's at lower health, wait until they get together, then I'll execute at the Death Knight, and that execute damage will duplicate to the Warrior. And I thought that was very, very fun. And as more Hordes trying to come out, trying to play the rest of the BG, we get a lot more people engaging and a lot more capabilities for cleave. And here's another scene of me and the Death Knight clashing together as more Hordes try to pour out of their spawn, and we're just trying not to let them, trying to do the most amount of damage possible. One of the things I noticed about a lot of the play classes in BFA, and some of you guys might find this, I mean, it's hard to compare current play classes versus BFA classes, but it feels like play classes in BFA are pretty squishy. So if you're running into the thick of it as a Death Knight, as a Warrior, as a Paladin, if you don't have a healer behind you, you're gonna have a bad time. A lot of other classes like Rogues and Hunters and Monks and Demon Hunters, they have ways of like getting in, but then also have a lot of good escapes out of a bad situation. So even if you get in a bad situation, at least you have a plan B. A lot of the Warrior classes, a lot of the play classes don't really have a lot of mobility, or nearly as much mobility as majority of the agility classes. So that's one thing that I think a lot of you guys will notice when it comes to playing PvP and playing as play classes in BFA. What I really like about Fury, and this is something I noticed compared to, let's say, me playing an Arms Warrior, what I absolutely loved about Fury is the fact that as a Fury Warrior, what's cool about it is the fact that your procs are kind of self-made. A lot of your damage and setup is self-made. With Arms, it's like everything's predictable, everything is guaranteed. You know, as soon as you got cooldowns, as soon as you got any of these abilities, if the crit, that's the only really factor that changes a lot of things for you. You know, with Fury on the other hand, you're kind of just trying to build up your procs, you're trying to build up your Fury, you're trying to build up your Rage, you're trying to build up your procs, and you're trying to save some procs until, let's say, you get into an Enrage mode, so where you can get the most amount of damage. So what has been fun as Fury is maybe saving my cooldown, saving a lot of my procs, saving a lot of my stacks for abilities, getting into Enrage with Rampage, and then really going off on a healer. That feels a lot better than just coming in as Arms Warrior and just Colossus Smash or, you know, overpower Mortal Strike, and then bam, you had guaranteed damage every single time. So as somebody who enjoys that kind of play style where the damage can kind of come in, you know, sometimes good, sometimes bad, sometimes in and sometimes out, I very much like that about the Fury Warrior and just kind of how self-made it feels. Anyway, that's my video on Fury Warrior. Fury Warrior is looking really, really good in BFA. I wish I had a live recording for this stuff, but I didn't want to put my live stream recording because the whole time I'm just freaking out about how fun Fury is the whole time. Anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know your thoughts about Fury for BFA. It's looking really good for PvP. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see all of you in the next one.